The latest NASCAR Hall of Fame class has been revealed, who made it in and who got snubbed. We're going to talk about that and more in today's video. How's it going, you guys? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. A happy Matt Kenseth Day to all of you. Of course, it's June 17th, 2020, or as you might spell it out, 6/17/20. I got the shirt on to celebrate and I'm having a good day. I'm not patient enough to wait 22 years, so we're celebrating it today, but we have a lot to discuss in this episode. I'm going to talk about the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I'm going to talk about Dale Jarrett, his recent announcement, and we're going to talk about NASCAR tweaking the rules package for this weekend's race at Talladega. But let's go ahead and get started with the latest class of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Last week, the huge panel of voters voted from the 15 nominees, the 5 on the Pioneer list and the 10 on the Modern list. 1 made it in from the Pioneer list, 2 made it in from the Modern Era list. And yesterday on NBCSN, they announced the 3 new inductees. Red Farmer, an original member of the Alabama gang, the dude still races to this day. He was voted in off the Pioneer ballot. Mike Stefanik was voted in off the Modern Era ballot, a well-known, very successful modified series driver, but the most recognizable driver being voted in was none other than Dale Earnhardt Jr. being voted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame in his first year on the ballot. I did a video 2 or 3 months ago when they first announced the whole list of nominees where I gave you guys my picks for who I would vote into the Hall of Fame, and I have no complaints because all 3 drivers that made it into the Hall of Fame this year are the 3 that I had picked back in April. I'll put a link to that down in the description below if you want to hear me talk more about the drivers that were nominated, the drivers who ultimately got voted in, because I want to talk today primarily about Dale Earnhardt Jr. because that's where the debate went on social media after the announcement. Most people were very happy for Dale Earnhardt Jr. being voted into the Hall of Fame, but of course there was a set of naysayers. I want to once again make the argument as to why I believe Dale Earnhardt Jr. rightfully is a first ballot NASCAR Hall of Famer. His resume is full of reasons why he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. To name a few, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is a 26-time Cup Series winner. He's a 24-time Xfinity Series winner. He's a 2-time Xfinity, then Busch Series champion. He's a 2-time Daytona 500 champion. He has 5 Xfinity championships as a team owner. He was voted the most popular driver in NASCAR, and with that assigned a lot of weight, a lot of extra pressure, 15 years in a row. And once he finished racing full time, he didn't just disappear. No, he stepped into the broadcast booth. He has brought new life to NBC and their broadcast of races. He's become the face of NASCAR and NBC. He also has his own podcasting network, which is one of the most popular in the sport. He's extremely active on social media, extremely active in all forms of American racing. He's even helped bring iRacing into the mainstream the last couple of years. His on-track stats alone are enough to be Hall of Fame worthy in my opinion, but what really puts him over the edge and makes him a first ballot Hall of Famer is all the stuff he's done outside of the race car since his retirement from full-time racing. And even before then, he was the ambassador, the face of American stock car racing for almost 20 years. I would argue he still is the face of NASCAR to this day. He has the most recognizable name in the sport right now. He has, for his entire career, carried more weight, more pressure on his shoulders than anybody else associated with the sport. And I believe more often than not, he has risen to the occasion and has without a doubt been a net positive to the world of NASCAR. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. being a first ballot Hall of Famer, right call. The voting panel got this one right. He was my pick to get in off the Modern Era ballot. I think they got it right. Of course, the actual ceremony won't be until 2021, so we have a few months for, I guess, him to prepare a speech. I'm sure that will be an extremely memorable moment. He joins his father, Dale Earnhardt, in the Hall of Fame, another father-son, another family duo in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Dale Earnhardt Jr., as well as Mike Stefanik, as well as Red Farmer for being voted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame for the class of 2021. All of them well-deserved. Now, the top 4 vote getters from the Modern Era ballot were reported. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. got 76% of the vote. Second place, Mike Stefanik, got 49%. Third place was Ricky Rudd, and fourth place was Neil Bonnet. Notably absent from that list is Carl Edwards, who was nominated for the first time this year. Now, I did not have Carl Edwards being voted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame this year. I do believe Carl Edwards has the numbers to make it into the NASCAR Hall of Fame eventually, but I am a little bit surprised that he was not even in the top 4 on the Modern Era. I would have had him 3rd or 4th probably. The fact that Neil Bonnet and Ricky Rudd, not saying they're not deserving of recognition, but I would argue Carl Edwards should be right in that mix. Let's briefly recap Carl Edwards here. He does not have a Cup Series championship, but he does have 28 career Cup wins, which is the most of any eligible driver who is not currently in the Hall of Fame. He also has 38 wins in the Xfinity Series and won the series championship in 2007. With those kind of numbers, he certainly should be getting serious consideration for a Hall of Fame bid. The reason I think he's not likely has to do with the way he departed NASCAR. I mentioned Dale Earnhardt Jr. a moment ago. He has good numbers on the track, not amazing, but I would say Hall of Fame worthy numbers on the track. But what really puts him over the edge is everything he's done for NASCAR outside of the race car. Carl Edwards has pretty darn good numbers on the track. He doesn't have any Daytona 500 wins, but he's won other crown jewels, and he has a lot of just the sheer number of wins. Very good. But the issue for Carl Edwards is he retired at the end of the 2016 season, before the start of the 2017 season. He retired in the middle of his prime, in the middle of his statistical and physical prime, and has hardly been seen or heard from since. He didn't retire and then stay involved in racing, even at a local level. As far as I know, Carl Edwards, I don't think he's been behind the wheel of a race car since 2016. I could be wrong, but it has certainly not been publicized if he has been. He's not involved in NASCAR in any way. He's not involved with any of the NASCAR race teams. He's not involved with any of the tracks. I don't think he's involved really at any local tracks either. He has disappeared from the racing world almost entirely since the end of 2016. And I do think that likely rubbed a lot of the voting panel the wrong way, and I can't entirely blame them. The Hall of Fame is supposed to honor people who are great on the track, great in competition, but also people who've been great for the sport beyond competition. People who were just generally great ambassadors for NASCAR, for stock car racing. Carl Edwards had a lot of success on the racetrack, extremely talented driver, likely would have won a championship one day if he had stayed in that Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota. But the fact that he chose to cut his career short, and the fact that nobody's really heard from him since then, kind of leaves a few of those boxes blank, which means there's a good chance he'll still get in the Hall of Fame one day, but no surprise he did not make it in on the first ballot. I'm just surprised he's not even in the top 4. I am a little surprised he didn't get at least some consideration. Who knows? Maybe he was 5th. Maybe he was just behind Neil Bonnet and they just didn't mention him. I don't know, but a little surprised Carl Edwards didn't get more recognition or more votes. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think Carl Edwards was snubbed? Do you expect Carl Edwards to make it in the Hall of Fame next year, the year after? There's a little bit of a gap here. You know, Jimmy Johnson's supposed to retire at the end of this year, so we're not going to see him on the ballot for at least 3 years. Matt Kenseth came back this year, so we're not going to see him on the ballot for at least 3 more years. So there's kind of a gap here where, you know, Tony Stewart's already been voted in, now Dale's been voted in. You're like, there's maybe a gap where we may not see as many big names popping onto the ballot in the next couple of years, so maybe Carl Edwards sneaks in the next couple of years. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let's talk about Talladega Speedway this weekend changing the rules package. Actually, before we talk about that, I do want to touch on Dale Jarrett before I get too far from the Hall of Fame. Dale Jarrett is a NASCAR Hall of Famer, and yesterday on NBCSN, he publicly disclosed that he has been diagnosed with COVID-19 and has quarantined himself for the past several days. Now, luckily, it does sound like his symptoms are very mild. He said he's been getting better every single day. His only real symptom has been a slight cough. He says he's one of the lucky ones, and hopefully that stays true. Yeah, definitely thoughts are with Dale Jarrett as he battles through this virus, as many other people in the world have been forced to do over the last several months. Dale Jarrett was always pretty tough in the race car, pretty tough in the garage area. I'm sure he will be able to come out of this thing stronger than he went into it, but definitely keep Dale Jarrett in your thoughts. It was very interesting to hear him publicly disclose that early yesterday. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about Talladega Superspeedway this weekend. There is a lot of racing happening. The Xfinity Series, the ARCA Series is back in business at Talladega, and of course the NASCAR Cup Series. Now, NASCAR just last week announced several changes to the cars for this race. Most notably, they are shrinking the gaps in the tapered spacer even more to restrict the horsepower from 550 down to around 510, and they're also getting rid of the aero ducts. All of this is in an attempt to get the speeds in the pack down under 200 miles per hour. And they're also hoping this makes it more difficult to tandem draft and to bump draft as aggressively as drivers and teams have been doing the last year or so. All of this, of course, is in response to Ryan Newman's terrifying Daytona 500 crash earlier this year, where he got airborne after a bump draft kind of gone wrong, obviously suffered a head injury that kept him out of the race car for several weeks. So NASCAR, in response to that, has also added a new support bar in the driver's roll cage for this weekend's race. So that, coupled with the efforts to try and lower the speeds a little bit, because the last year or so, since NASCAR got rid of the restrictor plate and just went with the tapered spacer and the huge spoiler, speeds in the pack have still easily gotten over 200 miles, 205, 206 pretty frequently. And while it's thrilling, while it's exciting to watch, the last two superspeedway races, the last two points-paying superspeedway races, I should say, have both seen the race leader flip at one point or another. Remember last fall, Brendan Gaughan, as he was trying to take the lead, got flipped. Of course, this last Daytona 500, Ryan Newman hit the wall and went upside down and got hit in a really bad spot. And even if you look at this year's Busch Clash, I don't remember anyone going upside down, but that race, that was more carnage than we're used to seeing. So while the high speeds and the extreme closing rates have been exciting for fans to watch, they've earned a lot of fan praise, and fans have loved the last few superspeedway races. It was getting a little bit out of hand, and it was starting to feel like the pack was just a little too out of control. I figured NASCAR would likely implement some sort of change as a result of the Newman incident. I don't blame them for wanting to try and get the cars under 200 miles per hour. Lowering the speeds even by just a few miles an hour could be the difference between a car getting air under it and taking off versus it staying mostly on the ground. So NASCAR, I think, is making good decision here. I am just a little bit worried, especially this weekend with no practice. They eliminated all the practice sessions for Talladega. I'm a little worried about how the cars are going to handle in a pack and whether or not we're going to see too tame of a super speedway race. Like, here's the thing. I don't like to see cars get wrecked for no reason, but when you go to Talladega, when you go to Daytona, everybody who signs up and puts their name and car on the entry list knows what they're getting into. They know that there's a 50-50 shot that they end up on a wrecker. The last thing I want to see this weekend is a 2013 Daytona 500, where a new car, new rules package in 2013, everyone just ran single file 80% of the race, and it wasn't that much fun to watch. I'm afraid this week, with no practice and a slightly different rules package, I'm afraid we could see something similar. You know, I love to see the pack racing. The wrecks obviously can get out of hand, as we've seen in the last year. But hearing NASCAR say things like, we want to discourage bump drafting, we want to get rid of some of the extreme runs that people would get on each other, like, I know they can be dangerous. I know they can lead to wrecks, but man, those have been fun to watch last year. Some of the runs people are getting, it's created a lot more passing opportunities for the lead, just in the middle of the pack at the super speedways than we'd seen in other iterations of the Gen 6 car. So I would be really disappointed to see the style of racing that we had last year go away completely. Lowering the horsepower a little bit, I completely get it. I mean, back when they had the restrictor plates on the car, horsepower was like around 400. So still about 100 more horsepower than we traditionally saw at super speedway races. I just hope the actual racing product does not suffer significantly. Of course, driver health and safety is extremely important, but man, I really hope it's not a freight train around the top all night long. That would be a little bit disappointing this Sunday if that's what happens. I'm fine with no practice, but when you're also making changes to the rules package, maybe would have liked to see at least a half hour or something. Give guys a chance to go out and draft for a few minutes. I don't know. Needless to say, it'll be interesting to see what the race looks like on Sunday. We know the Xfinity race is going to be fun. ARCA is, of course, going to be fun. Going to be a great weekend of racing at Talladega Superspeedway. I'm extremely excited for it. I hope you guys are as well. That's all I've got for this episode. Thank you all for watching. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, subscribe if you are new to the channel. Also check out down by the description, we have new t-shirts available, including an Out of the Groove logo t-shirt. We have the 100% on the Groovy Gauge t-shirt. We have a few different variations down there, so go check that out if you want to support the show. Now that fans are being allowed back to the racetrack, I hope to see some Out of the Groove t-shirts out in the wild. Support the show on the road. That would be pretty freaking awesome. But thank you guys for checking that out. Of course, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Could not do this show without the support I get from each and every single one of you. I will be at Bristol in just a few weeks for the All-Star race, and that would not be possible without your support, so I'm looking forward to filming that, showing you guys what a socially distanced, pandemic era NASCAR race looks like, of course, so I appreciate your support. Hopefully you guys find those videos interesting. Thank you all for watching. I should have another video up later this week. Got some other things in the works at the moment, but yeah, hope you all have a great rest of your week. I will see you again very, very soon. Take care, y'all.